As a product manager, no 2 days are similar. In fact, within the same day, you might be talking to multiple different people trying to solve multiple different problems. A minute ago, you might be leaving a meeting with the sales team talking about pricing strategies for your product, and right within the next few minutes, jumping into the next meeting talking with your engineering team about a recent bug that your customers might have faced. And as a result of this, it's really challenging at times to understand which behaviors of yours are really pushing the needle forward and really delivering the results that you and your team wish and desire. You might have several metrics defined for your product. It's usually not until several weeks, or for the most part, several months, until when you can actually look back, reflect, and see whether or not the feature that you published or the product that you delivered from scratch was successful or not. Metrics take time, and there's no 2 ways about it. Working in a role which is constantly changing on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of fluidity to it. As at the same time, not having these short feedback loops, it may be challenging for you to understand how well of a product manager you're becoming over the course of your career. And this is in fact a question that I had been recently pondering upon, was on a weekly or a monthly basis, am I really improving as a product manager? Being a perfectionist and at the same time being a product manager can get quite complicated, to say the least. And people throw out generalized statements, right? It's all about progress, it's not about perfection. Perfection is a lie. And while people might throw generalized statements such as these, there's a lot more to it. Being a perfectionist can feel quite exhausting, because every time you're doing something, whether it's writing a requirements document, creating a slide deck, defining metrics for success of your product, each time you do it, especially during your initial few years as a PM, you do feel that it can be done better. And the more you do it, the more you become aware of your shortcomings as well. So where do you really draw the line of the struggle, right? In this video, we're going to be touching on different things to keep in mind or incorporate to overcome this perfectionist mindset that you might have as a product manager. Number one, we've got awareness. So the first thing to really reflect on and understand is, at what stage within your journey of performing a task do you fall into this perfectionism trap? Is it before starting the task? Is it in the middle of the task where things are getting messy? Or is it at the end of the task where all you can do is just see the flaws of what you've just done? The first step that we're going to be covering is awareness. So it's really important for you to understand at what stage of performing the task do you fall into the perfectionism trap. Is it before you begin the task, where you're really scared of doing something that you've never done before? Is it in the middle of performing the task, where things get messy and you're still trying to figure things out? Or is it towards the end of the task, where once you've completed the task, all you can do is see the flaws that the flaws that are in front of you, and how you really, for the lack of a better term, sucked at doing what you did? Starting off at falling into the perfectionism trap before starting your task. Something that's well known within the creative community is artists, whenever they are creating a new painting, what they do is, instead of falling into this trap of perfectionism and figuring out what that ideal painting might look like, they essentially destroy the blank canvas by drawing a single black line in the middle of it. And by doing so, they definitely offload a lot of the additional weight and pressure that they were putting on themselves. And since what is in front of them is already, for the lack of a better term again, destroyed, or the canvas is not blank anymore, all that they have to do is try and improve it a little bit. And by essentially drawing that single black line in the middle of the canvas, they have overcome the biggest hurdle, which is starting to perform the task. Every step from that point gets slightly easier. Something else that I've also read and learned about is the 5-second rule, which is evangelized by Mel Robbins, who I believe is quite a renowned psychologist. And what the 5-second rule says, since it's also built on the paradigm of the biggest challenge for someone being getting started with something. So what the 5-second rule says is every time you're hesitating or feeling scared of doing something, all you do is count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that itself is really going to make it a lot easier for you to start doing the task, because A, you're disengaging from the fear that you were thinking about, since you're now focusing on counting through 5, and B, you're building that habit. At every time you count to 5, you're going to jump into the task regardless of what the outcome might be. So to summarize, if you fall into the perfectionism trap before starting the task, try out the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins, and if that does not work, try out what artists have been doing for hundreds of years, right? Just draw your black line in your blank canvas, and that might mean typing out a bunch of gibberish on the Word document or pasting clip art images if you need to on your presentation, because all you need to focus on then is making that slightly better. Alright, so moving on to falling into the perfectionism trap in the messy middle. What usually happens in the messy middle is you end up spending long periods of time trying to create that perfect presentation or perfect document, and the issue with that really is that you're not really receiving anyone else's feedback. What I've personally noticed is many times what I considered to be a shitty document or shitty presentation was quite appreciated by a lot of people who ended up consuming it towards the end. And the reason behind that being we are usually more self-critical of our own work than we are when consuming something that a co-worker of us might have worked on. And the approach that I would take to overcoming the messy middle is never completing the task fully, or never waiting to complete the task fully to receive feedback on it. So once I've really defined the structure of the document or understand what it is that will go into this presentation, say about 50 to 70% complete with the particular task at hand, I would go back either to my manager or to my team and really get some feedback from them on the task that I'm performing. So say for example, I'm creating an exec review document, right? And based on those assumptions, I would create a skeleton document, essentially outlining the problems that we're trying to solve, the solutions that we are proposing, and the business impact that it might create. Hypothetically, just consider this for the exam. And once I have that outline, I just get some quick feedback from people I personally trust and connect with well on the team, being my manager, couple of engineers, and maybe the design team if needed as well. Doing so is not only reassuring while you're working on the task, where you either figure out that you're on the right track, or if not, you can definitely pivot. It also saves up a lot of time because you're not digging yourself into a deeper tunnel if you're going down the wrong path. And then finally, coming into the last topic over here, which is being self-critical towards the end of a particular task. And for those of you who are overly self-critical once you perform a task and all you can do is look at the flaws or end up overemphasizing on the flaws, unfortunately I don't really have any tactical advice apart from just trying to focus on the successes. And this is one of those things which I personally feel just out of habit, is the more you do something, the more you get better at it, the more people recognize it publicly, the more you internally start feeling that your work is acceptable. And not only acceptable, it is appreciated. So you do definitely require a little bit of external validation. So to overcome I unfortunately do not have specific advice, but if you do, please drop in the comment sections.